Season 17 and Solar 3.0 have arrived, and have also left most Warlocks, well, wanting for more.
Look how they massacred my boy.
Unless you're a diehard sunbracers fan, that is. Only problem is that they don't scale well into harder endgame content, seeing as the whole loop needs melee kills, as well as relying on the aerial gameplay loop that Bungie has pushed Solar Warlocks into. So, what are we to do? Well, how about a build with infinite melees, infinite grenades, infinite rifts, insane single target damage, incredible AoE and ad clear, unmatched survivability, and a very fast cooldown on your super. Yes folks, all of this in one build. I'm going to talk about some important foundational changes that led to the decisions I made in the build. But if you want to just jump right to the build with no explanation, then skip to the time displayed on screen now. There is something very important that changed this season, and that is resilience now provides damage reduction, to the tune of a massive 40% at tier 10. I know what you're thinking, how the hell are we going to stack any decent level of resilience into our builds when there are so many other stats Warlocks need? And that's a great question, but it's actually easier than you might think. Melees and grenades are vital to most solar builds, and so most players will go and stack strength and discipline, right? Well, that's actually the wrong way to go. Because of how solar works, heat rises along with the Ember of Searing fragment will completely take care of any and all melee regen you might need. I'm only running tier 3 strength in this build, and it literally takes 2 kills for my melee to come back. As for grenades, if you're rocking either sunbracers or starfire protocol, you can literally ignore discipline entirely, as those two exotics completely take care of all your grenade regen. This means we are free to push all of our points into resilience and recovery, with any excess going into intellect. So we can easily work in damage reduction, and it certainly helps with the aerial playstyle. 40% damage reduction is huge, but even then, it's not quite enough for that playstyle to work in harder content. But there's one last foundational change with Solar 3.0 we need to discuss, and that is the burn and explode mechanic of Bottom Tree. I absolutely love to chain the burns and explosions, but this playstyle appeared to be completely gutted. Or so I thought. With the new Scorch and Ignite mechanic, you now need to hit 100 stacks of Scorch before the target ignites and we get the explosion. The new solar grenades don't do a great job of this. Often targets will die well before the explosion goes off, which leaves many of the Ignite-focused fragments pretty useless. Enter fusion grenades. So, while an enemy needs to stand in a solar grenade for approximately 6 seconds before they'll ignite and explode, fusion grenades with the touch of flame aspect explode twice, applying 40 stacks of Scorch with each explosion. But, if you add in the fragment Ember of Ashes, it's enough that one fusion grenade will proc ignite from its 2 explosions. This gives fusion grenades absolutely insane damage potential. So much in fact, they can burst down a barrier champion in a Legend Lost sector, allowing you to forego a barrier mod entirely. Each explosion stuns the champion, preventing them from raising their shield, and the double ignition procs obliterate them and any surrounding enemies. But it's not just barrier champions. These new fusion grenades are so powerful, they can burst through the healing of an overload champion, as well as melt an unstoppable champion without stunning either of them. I smell a new DPS meta here, guys. Atheon better watch out. So if you haven't figured it out yet, Starfire Protocol has come out on top and is my opinion the best exotic to build around for the solar explosion fantasy for endgame. It can be just as destructive and spammy as sunbracers and easier content, but it has the capability to scale incredibly well into endgame content. We have what is essentially infinite grenades simply by damaging an enemy with a weapon while standing in an empowering rift. Our double explosion fusion grenades will ignite enemies and explode for massive single target damage and AoE. Those ignitions will be larger and spread Scorch to surrounding enemies if you use the Ember of Eruption and Ember of Char fragments. Because of all the grenades we'll be chucking, we're going to run double Ashes to Asset mods in our helmet, so that all these grenade kills will grant us a ton of super energy. We'll also run Elemental Ordnance, Explosive Wellmaker, Bountiful Wells, and Seeking Wells so that our grenade kills and explosions are spawning a ton of wells that track to us. Thanks to Starfire Protocol, all those grenade kills instantly recharge our rifts so we can easily chain empowering rifts. The melee isn't vital to the build, but even so, our melee regen is completely taken care of by Heat Rises and Ember of Searing for what is also infinite melees. That's all our abilities feeding into each other for an infinite loop. We're doing massive single target damage with our grenades as well as AoE and insane ad clear. Our weapon is always doing bonus damage from the Empowering Rift. The last piece of the puzzle is survivability. Previously we had Phoenix Dive to rely on for an instant on-demand heal with no cooldown. Or if you were on Middle Tree, you could charge your fusion grenade to a healing grenade. Sadly, both those options are completely gone, so how the hell are we going to survive with no Phoenix Dive, healing grenade, or healing rift? I present to you my new survivability trifecta. Step 1 we already spoke about, and that is damage reduction. But it's not only rockin' tier 10 resilience. We also have the seasonal combo resist mod, Armor of the Dying Star, and I like to add either concussive dampener or sniper resistance on top depending on the activity. These all stack multiplicatively for incredible damage reduction. Step 2 is the elemental well mod, Well of Life. This well mod provides uninterrupted healing over time, and with all the wells we'll be creating with our grenades and explosions, we will be in a constant state of healing. But Well of Life is really just there to carry us to step 3, which is our super Well of Radiance. You see, the Daybreak super has more or less been killed in my opinion, especially with the removal of Everlasting Fire. But that's fine because our fusion grenades give us all the ad clear and single target damage we need, so the survivability of Well of Radiance is not only the missing piece to the build, but is more beneficial to the whole team. With double ashes to assets, I'm often able to get my super back before the previous well is gone. This means you can essentially chain your wells, and when combined with all the damage reduction we're rocking, you are nigh unkillable in a well. Now, I have not included any seasonal mods in the base build, mostly because I hate builds that rely on something that's going to be gone in a season. But there are some very powerful additions we can make, such as Molten Overload, which lets our solar grenades stun Overload champions, Flame Harvesting, which will allow solar exotic final blows to create solar elemental wells. But these last two add so much to the build, so definitely try to work them in. And that is Solar Fulmination, which allows ignitions to do increased damage in an increased radius. But the one that helps this build the most is Classy Restoration, which when activating our Empowering Rift will give us restoration for uninterrupted healing over time. There is one last piece of the puzzle, and that is my old friend Prometheus Lens. Trace Rifles have steadily been buffed over the seasons, and they do insane damage right now, but they just got another 20% damage buff to non-red bars this season. Not only that, but Prometheus Lens also now applies Scorch to enemies while damaging them, meaning when combined with our fusion grenades, you're going to trigger ignition procs insanely quick. Trace Rifles also have an overload mod this season if you're not relying on the solar grenade one. This build literally has every box checked and is one I see myself playing even beyond Season 17. Now, there has been a lot of disappointment with Solar 3.0 for Warlocks especially, but Kevin Yanes from Bungie mentioned on Twitter they're taking all the feedback and looking at improving and iterating on Solar 3.0 this season, and they're going to do this by tuning the existing aspects and enhancing them in various ways. I hope this gives us a non-aerial combat path, but also more focus on healing if you'd like to go the pure healing route. That said, I can't imagine how much stronger this specific build can get, but I'm not going to say no to a buff. I hope you all are enjoying the season so far. Thumbs up and subscribe if you liked the video. We're going to close this one out with all the full details of the build, and there's also a link in the description for the build in Destiny Item Manager for you to copy over for yourself. I'll see you on the flip side.